Hey, welcome to the Story Studio podcast. John looks kind of a little high right now.
Okay.
Just kind of sedate. Doesn't he look just a little like he's
might be tired?
Well, actually, no. Dave's exactly right. So it's funny that Johnny actually picked up on this. So I didn't nap today. I always nap. Before the show, I'm always.
You didn't nap, or you didn't nap, dude.
No, I didn't nap because just this like sequence of calamities this morning. There was just like Cindy had a rough morning and I knew she just didn't want to make lunch. And I'm like, hey, let's go out to the Indian buffet. There's this Indian buffet across the street. And so we went there and we had lunch, but that's like
you had diarrhea for 2 hours.
No, not at all. It's just like that would have been the time that I used to nap and everything. So we just came back. I took a quick shower and I came in. But yeah, I missed my nap. Like I love that
bubble bathing.
No. Like I've been taking quick showers. A lot of stuff to do. So I haven't been bathing. I've been showering.
You haven't been pampering yourself enough.
No, I know. I'll get back to it. But there's a lot of shit to do in this first quarter.
I had an amusing moment today. I was listening to, do you remember that audiobook somebody recommended during the Stone Table signature session called 10% Happier by Dan Harris?
Yes.
I have that. I listened to his podcast.
Oh, okay. So I'm listening. Have you listened to the audio?
Wait. Have you applied even one thing that it tells you to do or suggest?
Little bits and pieces here and there. I haven't read the book yet. I have, what do you call it? I listened to the podcast, though.
Are you planning on doing 10% of his 10%?
Yes, I'm going to do 1%.
So 1% happier. That's a number, Dave.
That's good though for me, right?
The reason that I'm enjoying it is just a little bit of background, and this would, if we were still doing something cool, this would, I guess, function as my something cool because I'm enjoying it.
I petition for something cool to make a comeback.
So he was I don't know if he still is, or Dave might know this better than me, TV news correspondent. Pretty high profile, actually. And I didn't know his name, but that's because I don't watch the news. But anyway, it's all about, it's about meditation, but he tells the whole journey to get there. And he's like a type A skeptic, basically. And listening to him go through meeting Eckhart Tolle and then Deepak Chopra and like what's somebody, one or two people from The Secret, who I can't remember their names, is really hilarious because I can't help but imagine Dave. He's not only does he think that they're all full of shit in different ways, but his writing is really funny. So like he just refers to, how sweaty they are and how it's this really sarcastic writing about how deranged everything they say sounds. And I totally hear Dave on all of that.
Yeah, I like him a lot. He had like a panic attack on air. And he has another book out, Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics or something. So
that's awesome.
I also have
great title.
So today we wanted to talk about mystery box storytelling, and actually, I think this is kind of neat. Maybe this is worth a little bit of background.
Wait. I think mystery box storytelling is actually the next one, and that the stuff we'll talk about in this one will kind of lead into that.
Okay, well then I have no idea what this episode's about. So take it away, Sean.
All right. So yeah, we were talking about mystery box storytelling yesterday in our story room. And we were using it as an example of something that I kind of scratched at the surface of when on a project two different projects that I'm working on with Dave right now. And so I was telling the story, to the group at large, and I was using mystery boxes as an object lesson. And I talked about J.J. Abrams' mystery box talk that he does for TED. And then Bonnie said, hey, would you guys mind if I interviewed you separately about mystery boxes? So we set that call up, and then that's cool. We can talk about mystery boxes. But as a lead in, I thought we could talk about, it's been really interesting. So I have two consecutive things that I'm working on right now. One is after 7 years, the script for Yesterday's Gone pilot, because that's just in what we're doing right now. That's something our portfolio is really missing, because at any point it is, okay, do you have a script for that? And we can move really fast. For example, we already have one for White Space and got a little movement on that like right away as soon as we had it written. And yet Yesterday's Gone, which has a much, much bigger footprint, doesn't have one. So it's really something that we need to get done. I wanted to do it last year, swore on like my everything that I would have it done by the end of this quarter, which is like next week. So it was time. It was time to just get to it. So
do you have 2 pages of Dog Vader barking?
I do.
Good.
There's a whole
I want to make sure that's
I don't want there's a dog in it. I need to make sure that gets handled.
Yeah. So
by the way, that's one of Austin's favorite dog stories is Dave going back and adding a dog to a book.
It's pretty good. In addition to that, there's another project that Dave and I are working on that I just referred to as our Oscar book this year. You know, it's the equivalent of every year for a long time. Well, we missed a few, but Johnny and I wanted to have we would call it our literary.
For a long time, meaning 3 years, but it was always the intention.
It was always the intention, right? But we have done it 3 times where this is the best thing that we've written. And I think the last time we did it, it got held for a year and now it's being held for another year and it'll come out this year. But we wrote it a while ago. Dave and I have something like that brewing and I needed a first version of that outline. And so seeing these 2 things where here's the latest thing I have from Dave and here's the first commercial thing that we ever did together. And the nature of a script is that you have to break it apart and put it all back together and you have to see it little piece at a time. So there was just a lot of analyzation that had to happen in the Yesterday's Gone work to get to the pilot. And I've uncovered a couple of big differences in the way that Dave and I think about story that I didn't realize before. And it's kind of neat that after 7 years, I can still I can unpack this. And
it's like a love story. He's still a delightful Rubik's.
Well, I think that the more you unpack something, like I think that great storytelling is all about understanding. It's understanding yourself in addition to the story you're trying to tell. And if you're in a collaboration, then it's understanding your collaborator. And Johnny is, he's just a more open collaborator than Dave because he's more trusting. It's just a fact. I mean, it's just the fact. I can't argue with that. It's not about who's the better storyteller or anything. It's just when it comes down to it, I can grow more and faster with Johnny because he's very open and accepting and trusting of whatever experiment we're going to do or whatever it is. But I've never been able to really define what it means in the story. And now I feel like I have a little bit more of an understanding for Dave, which was going to help us in our subsequent.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I am curious, because you.
Oh boy, I'm bracing myself.
No, so Dave is
show us in the doll where they hurt you.
Dave is really funny because he there's no consistency to how often he shows up to our story meetings. We never know. He'll just boom and then he's there. So yesterday I had the ultimate Dave story. It was all about
No. That's a big claim.
Okay, well no. All right. The ultimate Dave process story, talking about our process. And he wasn't there to hear it. So everybody got to hear about your process before you do, which is just funny. And now you're hearing it at the same time as everybody.
Well, yesterday I had to go to the pharmacy. A long story. So yeah.
This is a little like if your wife were to call all her friends and complain about you in bed or something, and you were the last one to know.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
I can't imagine that.
No, I actually, there's nothing here that is a complaint at all. It's just everybody tells stories a little bit differently. And I think that again, I love telling as many stories as I do, not because I'm trying to hurry through anything. I feel like, what was that? Was it Sylar? Was that his name in Heroes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you're absorbing all these superpowers. Every time you tell a story, especially if it's something that you haven't done before, you kind of absorb that superpower. It's really cool. And so what would you guess, Dave? What would you think is a fundamental difference? Because you've been writing with me, turns out, for exactly as long as I've been writing with you. So what do you think, what do you see as a fundamental difference between us?
I always have a peace scene in my books.
Yes, you do. That's actually not a joke for those of you at home.
Wait. You always have a what?
Urination scene?
Oh, okay. I thought I might have heard that wrong, but nope.
No. Okay, this story we're telling. I thought you knew this.
Is it always urination or is it just a bodily function?
They just wake up and they go to the bathroom, as people tend to do.
Nobody's pooping. It's all peeing.
I don't think I've ever written a poop scene.
Oh, you've written a poop scene.
I got some reference material if you want to.
I've written shitty scenes, yeah, but not.
You've written poop scenes with buckets in them, and like.
Oh, did I? I don't even remember.
Yes.
Could we get that on the master spreadsheet of books? Add a column.
Okay.
Poop scene, yes or no?
Okay, no. Okay, here's what's hilarious about this. I'm so shocked. I thought you knew everything, Johnny. I didn't know you didn't know this one. Okay, so.
Oh no, I know about the pee scene. I just didn't know that's the story you were telling right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
it's a trope. We're going to add it to tvtropes.com.
Yeah. Okay, so Dave's stories do always have a pee scene. So besides that, Dave, what else?
You want me to list my tropes? Is that what you're looking for?
I am going to look on TV tropes right now while you're doing it.
No.
Somebody gets knocked out. Somebody like
no. I don't mean that. No. I don't mean tropes. I mean just like the way we approach story, which may be too broad a question.
Mine is very mental character. Like some of it's visual, but it's more mental. I'm really in the character's head, so I don't know if that's what you're getting at or not.
Well, that's definitely a little bit of it. So, okay. So a really good example here is it's just the way we approach mystery boxes. Okay. So when I'm looking at, and we'll go into mystery boxes in the whole next episode. Like that's what we'll actually talk about. But
am I a mystery box?
You are a total mystery box. Now, Dave, or maybe we should just fold this in and talk about it because maybe we do need that foundation.
No, I think you should continue with this lesson because I know where you're going. I think we should explore, because mystery box is its own thing. And when you were getting going on the story meeting, there was a bunch that I felt I wanted to go in, but we'd already taken half the meeting.
All right.
So no, that should be its own thing. By the way, there is a TV tropes entry for urine trouble. Just wanted to close that box.
Thank you for looking into that.
Yeah.
I think Dave's autobiography should be called Urine.
Oh, I like that. Be good for like his investigative reporting things. Yeah. Something he says to victims.
A detective with a bladder issue. He's on a stakeout. He's got a piss in a jug.
I know exactly who I should pitch that to.
That sounds like a
trouble, a detective thriller.
I think that sounds like a fake Community show. All right. So
enlighten me on myself.
Okay. So Dave, the reason he only gets to the wedding scene in most books is because they lack mystery, right?
Yes.
This would be Dave as a reader for those of you who don't understand that reference. Getting to the wedding scene refers to Dave getting bored with a book partway through.
Right. And not partway through, like the first
a few chapters. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So if there's not a compelling mystery, he tunes out. He likes the same thing in his television shows, right, Dave?
Yes.
Okay,
most shows. Not comedies, obviously, but yeah.
Well, obviously. But you like mythology. You like all of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I've noticed this as a consumer. We found this in the company a bunch of times, that you shouldn't necessarily create what you enjoy consuming, because there is sometimes a divide between what you like to absorb and what you like to put out. And so what I was noticing in the Yesterday's Gone pilot as written, so some background here. Dave and I wrote that originally. It has 6 different POVs. So Dave
not nearly enough POVs.
Dave had 3 of them and I had 3 of them. And it was really like a playground, right? It was, we didn't talk about the story. We didn't talk about the world at all. It was just, let's go see what we each are going to do. And then we put our ideas together and kind of mesh them. And it is magical that like that is the first commercial property that we did to go out there and try to make our names as indie authors. And there is some instant magic. Now, a lot of it, I was like, wow, this is some clunky bullshit, right? Like there's some passages that I'm just flat out embarrassed about, but also not at all, because fuck you guys. That was our first work and at least we were publishing, right? So I do think it's interesting to go back and kind of take it apart. But the way our characters were handled are just so differently. And what's interesting is I did not have the perspective or the vocabulary to see this or articulate it at the time at all. But looking back after the 15 million words or so since then, it's a totally different observation. And all of mine are like, wee mystery boxes, right? And all of yours are much more restrained. They're like, here's parts of the story I can control and that I understand. And so for me, I don't care at all. Like, I'm like, we're going to figure this out. Oh, the rainbow talks? Fuck you, we'll figure it out. Oh, the dog's an Indian? Fuck you, we'll figure it out. Right? So like over and over and over, there's like just craziness.
You write us in the corners and I try and write us out.
Right. But I didn't realize that at the time, in the same way that at the same time, I didn't realize that you wanted no part of this publishing company that I was trying to build. Right. It's like, I didn't see that you were an unwilling participant in so much of my madness. And looking back, I can see your characters are much more stock, right? You've got the Jason Statham, double agent guy. You have this is the tropiest of all Dave characters. You have the journalist father who spends too much time working and feels guilty that he's not home with his child.
I've only written that guy one time.
No,
that's like me telling my kids, I've only told that story once. And they're like, Dad, we told like 10 times.
Dude, that is the Daviest character ever.
It's a very Davy character.
It's a very Davy character.
Gets mauled by a bear.
And then the loner teenager who gets bullied, right? These are Dave. These come from the Dave Hall of Fame right here. Like all of them. And then,
what would a Dave Hall of Fame look like?
Hall of Shame.
And then mine are like wacky, right? You've got like the magical little boy who's like got the weird language tics and and he's talking to rainbows and animals are following him and just weird shit all over the place. You've got the serial killer.
One of us does ayahuasca.
Right, you've got the ayahuasca taking serial killer. And then the third perspective is a whole group, so I can have a group dynamic with a lot of different personalities to play off of each other, right? And there's all of their storylines have mystery boxes, right? Because okay, we'll figure these out, and your storylines are restrained. Now, I think that's actually a beautiful chemistry between us, and I just never saw it that way before. I never realized it, but it's like when the pee scene was pointed out to us, and then I realized, oh my God, Dave does this in every book. How can I not unsee this? And how have I not seen it for all these years? It's the same thing. Now this is very consistent. And so I also have this outline that you just gave me, and it's the same thing. It's the purpose of this was that we were going to move real fast. And so Dave had a calamity this week, and I was
Calamity Dave.
Yeah, he lost a bunch of work, and I was sad about it because I didn't realize he lost work. I thought it was just like, come on, Dave, like we're supposed to do this a certain way, and I thought he was just doing it the old way, and like I thought, man, I'm going to write a book called Fixing Dave and just document the process.
It's like boxing Helena or whatever that movie is.
Just like that.
I would like to be in a box.
No,
actually not.
This will really good. So, but this outline, because this outline was kind of, there's so many good ideas here, but it falls prey to a lot of Dave's consistent, the things he's having a hardest time outgrowing. And a lot of it is trust in the story. So I think this is something interesting to explore, because this is what has been kind of our superpower, mine and Johnny's, I would say, not necessarily for selling books at all, but for exploring story and getting really good, really fast at being able to tell, being versatile storytellers. And what we do is we never shy away from the mystery box. Now, I'm really appreciative now that I can see this relationship like this, because I can approach it differently, because that is the relationship that I have with Johnny. So I come up with whatever crazy idea I want, but he's always there to ground it. And he'll ask a lot of questions, and he'll make the stupid ideas that I have really obviously stupid. Like, wait a minute, you're telling me that, right? And then so, between us, we get a very logical outline, that does have the big ideas that are kind of restrained in. But I never even realized that was specifically what you were restraining about, like when we have that back and forth. So anyway, we can keep going, but how does that sound? Does that sound accurate?
Well, I'm not sure, because I thought the outline was really good until the end part. So I'm not sure exactly where it was falling short.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm talking more about Yesterday's Gone. So on the outline, what I would say is that you've got stuff like really figured out, but you're not willing to trust that there's so much more to figure out. So when we talked, I forget what it was, but then like the outline came like 3 days later. And when we talked, I said, just send over what you have because you can't get it all the way. And you said, but I want it to come to you so good that you could just start writing it right away.
Yeah.
And I said, and even now, like you had that in your head, like that's a possibility. But I wish you guys could see him because he's like, no, yes, of course that's the possibility. But it's not. You have to get that out of your head. There's never a 1.0 outline. That doesn't work. The problems that you have in your stories, Dave, 100% of the time that get you to start over and want to write it over again are not being ready to write it. Like the outline isn't ready yet. It hasn't had enough passes. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I think the thing with me is I need to know everything that's going to happen. I need to know.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, and I have to. Yes, I feel like I need to know everything that's going to happen, and I think a lot of it comes from like the screw ups we've had in Yesterday's Gone, like where we wrote ourselves into a corner, and I thought, well, it would have been so much better if we knew this before then. So like I want to know everything before it happens so I can create like this perfect story, and there was no fuck ups.
That's a false belief, right? And once you can eliminate that false belief, it's going to open so many doors. And it used to be that I said, okay, you know what? Everybody's different. And, Dave's process is different than our process. But as more and more and more storytellers come through and like, you're the only resistant one, right? You're the only one who's still not doing it. And it's so successful for everybody else. So every single person who comes through it becomes more glaring that like, no, this is really something you can do. You can figure it out. This is a mindset thing. It's a code switch.
So what would you say that I'm not doing specifically that I should do?
Okay. So there's two things. The first thing is you have to see scenes as more like, what is this scene trying to accomplish? And I'm going to give you so many notes when I send this back. I'm going to, like Bonnie and I are both going through this to add a lot of notes to this because I do want to use it as like a teaching thing because I think that you are once you get this, you will be probably the most powerful outlining force in the company because you're native.
Well, it's like something that Obi-Wan Kenobi would say to Darth Vader before he strikes him down. I will become a more powerful outlining force than you can possibly imagine.
No, I think because I mean, here's the truth of the
dark side.
Here's the truth of it. And I say this like I feel like Chris Powell right now with love. Like I say this with love, but
this fisting is with love.
It absolutely is. Like the way you like your work habits and your basic approach to like doing the same mistakes over and over again, you should fail. Like your outline should fail. Like they shouldn't ever work. But because your innate like sense of craft is so fantastic and your own innate sense of story and character is so good, you pull yourself out of it time and time and time again. But if you could get that pre-production down so that you understand what is actually required in the outline, because the way you see it is in scenes, and I'll get to that in a second because that's actually the answer to your question. But if once you nail that and you become this like, I totally see you as a precision engineer, a story engineer. You just need to get rid of the false belief that you can engineer it before the story because at least half of it comes to the story. You cannot know it all ahead of time. You can't. You can't. That
Yeah,
does
we're
not
actually
happen.
finding that on an outline that we need to pitch a movie project. We need a finished outline, and we're just like, well, I guess we can just keep kicking the outline and hope that tells us the end. Like Sean and I are incapable of creating a complete story from A to Z at the outline stage.
Because, right, Dave, you have, okay, so you would never once outlined an ending that's been your ending, right?
12.
Okay. Anything else?
Not once, 12, bitch.
12, and I think maybe Crash, although Crash took a really long time.
No, Crash did not have the same ending. You changed that ending.
Okay,
and
I don't remember.
And it's a novella that took almost a year. So let's not use Crash as an example.
Well, 12 was the most
engineered. That's actually a great example of you at your best.
And also 12 is kind of like I knew the ending, 20 years ago. So yeah,
right. And that ending is kind of in the construct of the concept itself too. But I mean, Johnny and I have written a lot of books, and I cannot tell you how many endings we've mapped out. Not many, though. I mean,
so on the outline you're going to pass back to me, do I need to fix these things, or you guys are fixing them and I just need to read the notes? What is it?
No, it's the outline is as collaborative as the book. That's the thing. Like there's a storytelling process that has to happen, but you get really internal with the outline. You're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to give it to him, and it's all going to be done. And you end up spending so long on it that I get it, and I end up fixing it all and then just writing it because there's no time left in the schedule.
Okay, so I think seeing the notes will actually be helpful. So I can see what you're talking about.
I'm sure. So what I'll notice is what you'll do. Like you'll have like, let's say I have two outlines and they're both 10,000 words, right? Which is about right. Like, but one outline has come from Bonnie, and and then the other outline has come from you. And this is interesting too, because I'm doing all my tracking right now, and I can see how many words I produce an hour from a Bonnie outline versus a Dave outline, right? And this is no reflection on the quality of story at all. It's just, this is how many words I'm able to produce. And the kind of outline is like, it's not even close. Like I'm just way faster on a Bonnie outline, but it's because of the triggers that are there. And so what you'll do is in the beginning parts, here's a typical outline, and tell me if this sounds familiar. The first few chapters will be pretty much written. Like, okay, here's a chapter of the book. It's like 2,000 words. So already 20% of my outline, ladies and gentlemen, is chapter 1.
Well, I'm still feeling it out at that point.
Right. Okay. And then as we go on,
I thought I was being helpful.
The chapters become thinner and thinner until like the very end. Chapter 37 is like she tells him something, and then it's the next chapter. And so I don't have like beginning and
so
middle.
My way of thinking is like early, because this is how it would help me actually. So if I was writing the outline to myself, that's what it would look like. And basically my idea is I get you in there in the beginning, and like you learn the character, and you like I detail so much, and by the time you're like near the middle to the end, you know the character, you know what they're gonna do, and you don't need as much detail in those chapters. That's my way of thinking. Or you're like me, that you are in the character and you just need a brief outline, and you're kind of like making shit up that will fit.
But yes, but then that's how we run into storytelling problems, because we actually don't know what happens. So there's a lot of things where what you're doing is you're picturing a scene. So in your chapter, you're not thinking about what has to happen in this chapter to drive the story forward. What's the big question? What's the big objective? How does it lead into the next chapter, or anything like that? What it is I see them, they're driving, they're going here, and there's like a mood that you're feeling, or like one moment. So there's always a moment. You're like, basically chapter 34 has to have this moment. And I get that moment, but that's different than this happens, then this happens, and this happens in a chapter. And so you'll spend a lot of your real estate in an outline getting really detailed on actual dialogue instead of actions. Like, this is supposed to happen, then this is supposed to happen, this is supposed to happen. So I can give you like outlines that are like, oh shit. They're like directions, right? It's like a blueprint, and you write that. but it's just that there's and it actually is fine, because I mean, Stonefall, which we loved, right, was written like that. I mean, that's how that outline was, and it's fine. It's not that an outline like that can't be written that way, because of course it can be, and of course we can find the story. But what I'm saying is that there are better ways to do it that we've uncovered. So how this would have been, I think, a more amazing project, and we'll still kick it back and forth, is the whole directive there too was, I think there's way less story there than you imagine too. So I said this could be...
That's not good.
Well, I said this could be... Okay, so here's an example too. I think that because you think in terms of scenes instead of objectives, and you're thinking visually instead of how much has to happen, it is a different way. It is more visual, but I think that your spatial relations for story are sometimes off. So here's an example. When you handed me the Yesterday's Gone treatment that was going to turn into the script with like a chapter list, basically, right? Okay, this has to go, and then this has to go, and this has to go in that sequence. And then we had, I mean, it wasn't conflict at all. It was just different. We saw it differently. And you said, I really think this needs to be divided in two. There's too much here. There's too much story here. This really feels like 2 episodes. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Like, that's one less episode. And structurally, you can't divide that, because you're introducing every character. You can't have a pilot that's, half the characters in one, because then whoever you introduce in the second episode is going to feel like they're new to the story. All your characters have to be in the pilot. You remember talking about that?
Yes. Okay.
So the thing that you thought needed to be divided into 2 is actually 40 minutes of television.
All right.
All right. I actually had to take stuff from episode 2 and add it in, and I'm padding it, and because it needs to feel like a full hour, and there's just not enough story. So that's something that is consistent with your outlines, is there's not enough story there, but you'll go really deep in a few parts. So because you've gone so deep, you walk away from the project feeling like, wow, I'm really exhausted emotionally and creatively because I put so much into that. But you didn't put it across the story. You put it in a couple of spots in the story with a lot of blanks. So the way like that, I mean, alternative ways of doing the outlining process, and what I think would have been great here is you and I had our very first meeting, and it was like, okay, here's the concept, here's the name. And I think we were like both digging on the concept and the name, the fact that it could be as long as we wanted, it's basically like, this is our Oscar work for the year. This is going to be really awesome. And the finished outline is 31 chapters, which is novella length. I mean, that's shorter than our normal stuff. And so there's just not that much story there. So the best way to have done this is to take that original concept, and instead of spending a week or whatever on it, you spend like a day or 2. Just get those raw ideas out. You pass it to me, and then I give you a bunch of questions, right? Which is what Johnny would do to me. Okay, well, I don't understand this, and I don't understand that, and this doesn't make sense. And then you answer those questions by telling more of the story. And then you pass it back, and we do that, and we get on the phone until we have a story that we both really love. But instead, you take it and you hammer your head against the wall over and over.
Well,
I'm going to figure all this out.
Yeah, part of it was that it's juggling 3 different timelines, which I found kind of like putting a puzzle together, and it was difficult. So,
yeah, but
I don't want to belabor the point, but yeah,
timelines are a pain.
Yeah, they for sure are. But I'm going to give you a whole bunch of notes on this, and I think it's going to really help. And
all right, I
mean, I think that the whole thing is you're in such a good place right now to be absorbing all of this.
I thought he was still in Florida.
And we're fortunate enough that we're kind of ahead on our work right now, which is a place we haven't been in a really long time. And I mean, we're like probably just a few weeks away from being a place where we can say, okay, now what do we want to do next? And it means we do have more time in pre-production, and we do have more time to, pass notes back and forth.
That would be good. Yeah.
That's going to be really helpful, because that's I know that your big goal for this year is to, impress the fuck out of everybody. And my goal is to make that goal possible for you and it really help you. And so I like that we can slow down a little bit more so I can give you those notes, because you always do want to learn. And I was really glad to hear that you crashed this week instead of made bad decisions. Way better. So do you want to call it and then go to
yeah, I was just waiting to see how you guys concluded that, because it's just kind of like, I mean, it was really interesting, but I'm just like, is there a final no?
Well, no, I think it's just
wait and see.
Well, yeah, I think that Dave and I are iterating our process for the first time in 7 years, really. I think that Dave has been pretty resistant to that kind of
I'm a martyr of a storyteller.
He is a martyr of a storyteller, and he likes to feel comfortable. And so even if something doesn't work, but it's what he's done before, that is comfortable to Dave. And so breaking out of those bad habits is just so important to his success. And he knows that. Like, he knows that. And
we can title this Teaching an Old Dave New Tricks.
Ooh, I like that.
I actually do like that. And I do want to keep chronicling this. Like, I like that we did this live in front of everybody. You know, I mean, this is a conversation that we would have had quietly, and we did it, you know, because I think that there's a lot of Daves out there, and I think that it's hard to change.
All conversations that you're originally going to have privately should be conducted.
Yes. Will the real Dave Shady please stand up?
Yeah, I mean, don't you feel, Johnny, that like as writers, Dave is way easier to identify with than we are, because we are super experimental. We will try anything, and for the most part, writers like to feel
very much, but also just quite separate from that. We're really trying to find the new rhythm of the show. It's not like new show, reinvention of the show. It's not anything that grand, but it is, what's the rhythm look like? Because we're weeks away from this sort of new dawn that we've been looking for, where we're full story, and there's a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the things that kind of occurred to me this week is when we have a twice weekly story meeting, and a lot of times Sean comes with like, well, here's the thing I thought that you guys would be interested in. And for some reason, I guess I'm always just like 60 seconds late or something. And so it's always going, it's already going. And it's like I've walked into a lecture. Like there's a little speech. It's kind of like, well, here, it's like the preacher, like, well, here's my sermon before we begin. So not that it's like heavy handed or whatever, but it made me think that things that merit discussion amongst the storytellers inside Sterling and Stone are probably, some of it's going to be good fodder for the show, just because that's what it means to be a story studio. And we actually, as Sean mentioned, that Bonnie asked about the mystery box and was like, can I do an interview? And it's like, well, yeah, all day long, because we're turning a lot of our education inward that we used to do for the smarter artist. Now it's to educate our people. So it just is an interesting new kind of dawn for us. So anyway, so that's it. Thanks you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening to the Story Studio podcast. And next time we will discuss the mystery box storytelling, which I think is pretty cool. So there you go.
Adios.
Bye.